Welcome to Creekside Chat. I'm Adam Bowden. He's Sean Longani. This is the only podcast filmed in a stallion barn. Mickey's right next door. Let's get right into this.
Let's do it, sir. So today's episode is sponsored by some folks that we know and trust, the Scott Betts Racing Stable out of the Meadows. They're near Pittsburgh. We appreciate them.
Absolutely. We'll jump right into it. We're going to first cover the things we're not going to talk about.
Yeah, so the hot topics that are not going to be discussed today, we do discuss on a regular basis, but we're not going to hit on it yet because we're not sure. And that's in regards to what do we all do with all the well-bred, tall, dark stranger fillies out there.
Like maybe a little bit of
breeders.
a disappointment on the track, but like you said, super well-bred fillies. So we debate internally.
The big question, can they throw it on?
Yeah. Then we're going to not talk about the hidden ownership that permeates the top of the sport and includes mares, foals, yearlings, and maybe even.
Yeah, it's a hot topic
for another day.
For another day. And then HISA, of course, that lingers in the news at all times because constant court cases, and it's just a little too complex right now.
It's way too
complex.
Really
get into,
yeah.
So
we'll let the courts decide first. And then we'll head behind the barn doors where we're going to discuss a handful of things Diamond Creek related, including a recent trip to Sweden for our admin team. And then we'll introduce Cassidy and the new internship program.
Very exciting. We'll get into our open bridle segment after that. And open bridle is our no holds barred talk where we often get into some controversial things, but just a broad look at things going on in the standardbred business.
Yeah. Test everybody a little bit. And then we'll wrap it up down the stretch, our fun-loving segment where we answer a few fun questions.
Yeah, we've got a special piece in down the stretch today regarding the stallion and the fawn. So we're glad you're here, whether you're in the barn or in the stands. We appreciate you listening to Creekside Chat. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
All right, let's pull back the behind the barn doors, and we've really got two separate things we want to talk about today on behind the barn doors. But most people may have watched this past Sunday was the Elitloppet, as we call it. But this morning I learned that it really should be called the Elitloppet. Is really how it's pronounced. Yeah. So to kind of talk about the presentation that the staff who went gave today and the origin of why they went and how this all came about.
Yeah, I mean, last year we had a whole number of new stallions, right? Plus all the old ones. And, we were talking internally, like, how do we motivate everybody? How do we get full books? Because that's always the goal, right? And so you and I created a little list of the horses plus the breedings that we wanted to get to, the numbers that we wanted to get to. And then they had the goal. And then we kind of gave them the option that if they hit those goals, that they could kind of sign up for either the Elitloppet or the Prix de Marique. And, throughout the season, we kind of tracked their progress. And it really came down to the end. I mean, I remember asking my wife late, like, what if they're too short? Am I still letting them go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It created a bunch of great teamwork. And then the reward payoff ended up being a working vacation, which I think they would all say that the perspective they came back with or the connections they made with folks they may have emailed for years was priceless.
Yeah, I mean, names to faces, right, in a lot of cases, and new connections as well. But like the whole admin team, they did such a great job. And like you said, it was a working vacation, but it really was a reward for the hard work that they kind of put in.
Yeah, so it's a group of young people. Some of them have not even been to Europe before. They fly into Stockholm. They stay at a hotel near the track there at Solvalla. They get to go to Minhammer Stuteri Stallion Farm. They get to see those stallions and see how they operate. Bunch of great takeaways there. What else did they do?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they went there. They had some airport troubles as well, which was kind of funny to hear about this morning.
I've never laughed so hard lately. That was like hurting.
But I think overall it was a good team bonding thing. Like you and I challenged them to make connections, which they did, and they reported back on. But overall, just a great experience. At the end of the day, it cost me money, but again, it was well worth it, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
That's great. I'm glad you think so, because their takeaways and what it will bring to the table in the future, I think it'll pay off in folds. So with that, let's wrap up this first part of Behind the Barn Doors, and I'm going to get out of the way. And incoming is someone you have not met before, and she'll get introduced to you, and we'll jump into the next segment we have.
Let's do it. All right, let's pull that barn door back and get into our brand new internship program. I'm sitting across from Cassidy Kelly. I'm Adam Bowden. And I'm going to give you a brief history of the internship program here, and then I'm going to turn it over to her. So when I first started the farm back in maybe 2007, I had the first intern. And it was one of these processes. You're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. We're basically the same age, right?
Yeah.
And then you get interns along the way. Gina Daly, who now runs a farm, and Caroline, who's literally worked every position here, all the way up to where you started.
Yeah.
So tell us that story.
Yeah, so I was an intern in 2022. So my internship with Diamond Creek was kind of my first real exposure to the standardbred industry. And it completely actually changed the trajectory of my career. So I came in with limited knowledge, and after foaling that season close to 90 mares, I definitely left wanting more. The sheer scale of the operation really opened my eyes to the abundance of opportunities in the field.
So you're here 6 months, thereabouts. Yeah. You leave, finish school?
Yes, I did my internship. I went back and to the University of Tennessee, go Vols, to finish my degree in ag ed. All right. And then part of my coursework included curriculum development. So I was able to essentially develop a curriculum catered to Diamond Creek specifically. And I pitched the idea to Adam, and thankfully he decided to give it a shot. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, our internship program up to that point had sort of been very amateurish, right? It was like, just get bodies in the door, do the work.
Yeah.
You know, we had kind of kicked around some ideas internally about how do we structure this thing better? It was always secondary to whatever else we were doing.
Right.
And so you come along, you present this idea, and it's like, all right, I can see some potential. You know, Darley's Flying Start program is sort of the pinnacle of internship programs. And I was like, all right, can we make this into the standardbred version?
Totally.
Right? So you're in the door, then you start working on it, and then it's kind of exploded from there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. So, I mean, going off of what you said, I think that often we see kids who come in that are either really strong in the knowledge department and lack the skills, or they're really strong in the skills department and lack the knowledge. And I think we are trying to bridge that gap to then send off more well-rounded employees to kind of give a pipeline to the industry.
And maybe take one or two for ourselves.
Would love to. Yeah. Yes.
So give us a quick, what does the internship program look like right now?
Yeah, so right now we offer two kind of set internship programs. That would be our yearling prep internship and our foaling internship. So yearling prep runs from July through November, and then foaling is January through kind of the end of June. So they work 5 days a week on farm, and then we added a supplemental classroom day to, like I said, bridge that gap.
Yeah, because up to this point, we had always just put them on the farm and tried to do the best that we could to teach them.
Yeah.
And your idea was to really expand that educational part, right? And take them out of the barn and into a classroom.
Totally. Yeah, and I think that putting those things together will help with their success a lot. I think for someone coming in, take me as an example, for someone coming in with not a lot of experience in this industry, it was exciting for one, but it was also overwhelming. And I was definitely a kid who wanted more of the why behind why we do things. And so that's what we're trying to give them. Yeah,
that's good. So I think that's been the gap that we're trying to bridge, right? It's I have a lot of questions, but I'm working 6-7 days a week.
Yeah.
And we're trying to peel some of that away and give them the knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, our farm managers do a great job of teaching our interns, but they also have an entire other job that they have to do. So if we can kind of use this to help them as well, that's our goal for internally.
Yeah, and you're working with Emily, who's the general manager, to kind of create this program, right? That's every week there's some new topic and subject that you're learning in the classroom. and then you can apply it in the barn.
Yeah, and even like if they're part of yearling prep, they're just doing yearling prep on farm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want them to be able to see all of the other pieces of what we call a standardbred puzzle, to be able to put all the things together. So if they just know foaling, where does that foal then go? What do they do? And that's hard to teach and it's hard to show if you don't have it kind of set up before. So
yeah.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Yeah,
Cassidy,
very
tell
exciting.
everybody how to get a hold of you.
Yes, so if you have any questions, if you would like more information, we are still looking for one more spot on the roster for yearling prep of this year. So you can reach out via email at cassidy@diamondcreekfarm.com, and there will be more to come. So very
maybe
exciting.
some more videos to share as we get rolling.
Yes.
Yeah. So thanks again for joining me,
thank
and
you.
that's Behind the Barn Doors today.
Yeah.
It's all Pebble Beach. And Pebble Beach has destroyed this field. The Pepsi North America Cup, Pebble Beach in Iran.
More than $18 million in progeny earnings? How's that for a strong father figure?
But at mid-stretch, it's a Green Shoe who's still on the top. Green Shoe will win the Kentucky Futurity.
Father Patrick ranks among the top trotting sires by earnings.
Trotting for home in the Breeders' Crown. It's a Mingo Volo leading the way.
The perfect combination of performance, pedigree, and results. Father Patrick, standing at Diamond Creek Farm.
All right, folks, we're going to open up this bridle and we're going to take off all the bumpers and boundaries and just let it loose, because there's some extremely
sensitive topics.
A bit shocking, you could say, regarding the fines and suspensions lists from the last 2 weeks. So 2 weeks ago, we had several folks who were suspended. I don't recall the links or times, but
a lot of them were over a year, and some of them were indefinite. All due to this SRIF investigation.
Yeah, and we're not sure what it was regarding. We're not familiar with the folks at all. Don't know any details at all. But it was the first time that we've seen folks be suspended for failure to submit information to an investigation, and that was one of the rule changes. That was strengthened, where they have the ability to do that, the United States Trotting Association. So a little bit scary from a member's point of view, that you can say, no, I don't want to give you any information, and you could be suspended for that. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts, but
Yeah.
we went through this, right? And they requested information from us. And at times we said, some of that information they don't need to see, or we felt like they didn't need to see. And we're always threatened with this. Carson Morris led investigation, and I think he's continuing to behave the same way. We know people going through it right now. You've seen the fines and suspensions. Ours were limited to $5,000 fines for each instance, and now they've taken the gloves off, and
There is no limit, no maximum.
Yeah,
correct?
and I don't know the Wagners at all. From what I understand, maybe not the best guy, but not for me to judge. But the fines were incredibly large: $217,000 and $435,000. So, I don't know why you would pay those. You're suspended indefinitely, but.
Well, when fines were maxed out at $5,000, and now we have a sea change, and
Unlimited?
there are numbers being thrown out like that. Again, we don't know any of the facts of the case. Don't know.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue the merits of it at all.
Not at all.
I just think
this is a big change.
Yeah, again, we felt they abused their power when they were investigating us, and they're clearly continuing to double down on that. And, a lot of this is bearding related, right? They're saying that, at least in the Wagner's case, that they were bearding.
Hidden ownerships.
And for Russell to say those things when, we know some things that are happening and have happened regarding bearding. And Russell, it's just a little tricky. You shouldn't throw stones if you live in glass houses, right? It's a scary precedent. And I feel bad for anybody that's under investigation now or that will be under investigation, because those powers are unchecked right now.
They've clearly paved the way with the rule changes to accomplish what goals they have in that area.
And I'll say from experience, Carson Morris is a bulldog, and he's just going to come after you. So be
we
prepared.
caution folks. Be careful and know that anything you essentially say or do is under their purview.
In the past and in the future. So,
scary stuff.
But let's change gears here now, and I'll turn this over to you because this is close to.
I want to talk about New York, and I want to talk about something that most people probably aren't familiar with. Everybody in the breeding business knows that we weren't allowed to breed to New York stallions without having the mare in the state, so no shipped semen, even though it was still artificial insemination, until last season, 2024. So they made a change and they started to allow shipped semen, and we all thought that's great. In fact, we thought it was so great, we placed a homebred stallion in Cannibal, son of Sweet Lou there, syndicated him. We had over 35 different shareholders from in and out of the state. And we had a great first breeding season. We love the foals that have come this year, and he's there breeding a full book again this year. Well, we all found out a few months ago that there's an issue in New York. And what is that issue?
I mean, the issue is that they've retroactively, or I guess the language from an old law, they're bringing back up to disclude foals from racing in some of the lower legs, right? On the shipped semen.
Yeah. So,
right?
So your Excelsior and your Fairs, they're now saying that if you bred on shipped semen without the mare being in the state, those foals are not eligible to those New York races.
Which, like you said, we likely wouldn't have put a stallion there had we known they were going to hold to those laws.
Very sensitive to this. Breeders, shareholders, everybody made decisions based on one thing, and then we're all kind of finding out that it's another thing.
Yeah.
Is this new within, racing jurisdictions and horse racing related?
No, because we dealt with it here
agencies
in Kentucky, right? And I think the letter of the law says whatever it says, right? But the intention sometimes was to include everybody, and then you add levels and you don't specify those levels. It gets tricky, and then they got to go back and rework some of the laws, which hopefully they're going to do in New York, right?
That's our deepest hope. But there is that issue there, and it's not anything new, and it's that classic bait and switch that no one appreciates, and it's got everybody a little concerned right now. So that's something on the horizon.
But you've got support from, we have support from most of the top breeders in the state.
And Blue Chip and Cameo, Cameo Hills being the two stallion farms, have been good leaders in this process. But it's just another example, just like the USTA. You got to read everything, and you got to know kind of what actually is out there and what the power of these different.
I mean, we went through and basically we thought we did our homework really well, but come to find out, we're not lawyers at the end of the day. We're horsemen.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a good open bridle segment. With that, why don't we wrap up this episode of Creekside Chat and take it down the stretch?
Down the stretch.
All right, folks, let's take it down the stretch. And we just want to talk about a kind of a cool internet sensation that's been making a splash. It's the story of the stallion and the fawn.
Sounds like a kid's book, right?
I mean, what I love about it, so it's Confederate with the tiniest little baby deer you've ever seen.
And I didn't even realize they were that small when they were born.
You never get to see them because they're hidden, right? Yeah. And so I know everybody has a ton of questions about it, but it's totally legit. Confederate at no point threatened this baby fawn at all. The fawn was super comfortable. Confederate trots at the thing, but in like a friendly way.
Nuzzles it. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just a nature's oddity situation. I love that people get to see how smart and soulful that horse is.
Because you've said from the beginning he's different, and I think that proves it, right?
One of a kind.
Yeah.
Love it. Rapid fire questions here to end the episode.
Boy.
What is your current guilty pleasure song?
I got 2
in the car.
I have 2.
You don't make the rules here. You don't get to have 2.
Fine, I'll have 1. Wilson Phillips, Hold On.
Oh, that's a classic.
That's a great one.
Yeah, that's a classic.
And what about you?
Well, guilty pleasure, I think it's got to be like something that's basically trash that you find, value out of. This song is trash. I don't know how you even say the artist name, but I think it's Doechii.
Okay.
So this is when I'm in the car, like XM radio, and you end up on the pop station, but it's that song Anxiety.
Okay.
Anyway, she samples that Gote song or whatever. It's somebody that I used to know. Remember that song a few years ago?
Yeah.
And basically this girl raps over that.
Okay.
Check it out.
Way over my head.
Me too, bro.
All right, next
what's
one.
One horse, standardbred,
Okay.
a living horse that you don't own but you wish you owned?
I would say Sabonis.
That horse is
But we just bought him.
Yeah, we did. Excited to add Sabonis to the roster. Shipped into Pelling's barn a few months ago. It was kind of love at first sight.
Yeah. We're like, how do we own this horse?
Never thought we'd have a chance to own him, but we were able to get a deal done last week. And so we're super excited.
Bought him Friday. He stunk on Saturday.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Right. He did lose a shoe.
Yeah. No,
so
he had
give him
valid excuses, but we're looking for a big season with him.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. Yeah. So before we wrap up, I want to give our sponsor this week, Scott Betts Racing Stable, a shout out. So when I first got into the business back in 2018, the Betts brothers, Tim, Andrew, and Scott, were some of the nicest people to me out of the gate. And I will always appreciate that. But Scott takes his time. He gets the most out of horses. He's the son of a vet. He's third generation horseman on both sides of the family. He's good with feet. He's exceptionally good with trotting fillies. They've had a lot of success importing some Italian trotting fillies and doing some amazing things lately. Highly recommend them. I've had a horse in his barn personally. If you need somebody that will do right by your horse, get everything that they can out of it. They've got a turnout farm down the road from the meadows there where they're based. Would highly recommend Scott Betts. You can get in touch with him if you just Google Scott Betts Racing Stable.
Yeah, thanks. And so we'll wrap up this episode of Creekside Chat. We're also going on summer vacation, so we won't return until September. But in between, we are going to tease some videos here. So maybe a long form interview, maybe a sit down, but we'll fill the space in between now and September. So
that's great stuff. We're working on some really exciting things for the fall. So stay with us, and we will get back at you when we see you.
Yeah, thanks. Creekside Chat out.